Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you, hopefully, a better explanation of one of my biggest worries with 11th edition. Um, Coming off of the back of WTC, I figured that that would be a better way to illustrate the thing that I am concerned about when it comes to dispositions and in relation to our own faction, right? However, I think that the approach that I took made things a little bit less clear than I would have hoped. And this isn't just off of the back of that video. There was another video that I noticed a comment or two that kind of went a different way than what I meant. But it was in the comments of the last Tyranids video that an example that was given gave me a better way of explaining what I mean as far as what I'm worried about with how GW is proceeding with things. That example was talking in the comments about because I titled it something, and again, I probably could have titled the video better. Sometimes when you think that you understand what it is, or when you understand what you mean, but you don't quite properly put it in a way that is could have been clear. It could have been clearer. Um, but one of the examples was given was there was a comment that noted, hey, I enjoy Unending Swarm and Warrior Battle Onslaught. And I have made a video talking about that combination too. I think that's fine. Um, but my thing was, I don't think that I'm not necessarily wondering why people aren't at WTC taking Unending Swarm. It's been what it has been for a while. Warrior Battle Onslaught, we had people take that too. Um, my more concern is that if you do that, you have to play Take and Hold. You have to play Take and Hold. Meanwhile, if you look at some of the other armies, namely something like Guard, where there's a lot of tiny bodies, where you can't necessarily just fend people off like Gaunts die pretty quickly, right? It works for orcs for them to do take and hold with a bunch of their bodies because their bodies are T5 and have a bunch of leaders that attach and do things, and then they actually have damage output and all of that. Gaunts don't do that. They are there to just be there, hold primary, maybe attach a last prime and punch something, possibly. But if you look at something like Recon Guard, recon, cough, cough, right? There's a lot of bodies and you go to recon. So my thing with that is that if you were to take Unending Swarm or your Battle from Onslaught, the only thing you're playing ever, as it currently stands, is Take and Hold. And I don't find that to be great game design when there's multiple ways to play a unit, right? Um, for instance, again, and the comment replied, like, yeah, I think they would be great disruptors. And that's exactly what I mean, too. Like, if you want to take that combination of, oh, here's a bunch of surge moves and some surge moves over here, which we've talked about, that would be pretty well served in disruption. Surge moves want you to leave from where you are, right? So while it's nice that Unending Swarm is a lot of battle line units, and that Warrior Battle from Onslaught makes the Warriors battle line, and they also have, 2 OC. That's great to have a lot of OC that can reach points, but you have to turn off one of your unique and the detachment rule in Unending Swarm if you want to continue to do your game plan of take and hold. Because, yeah, you could get access to Sticky thanks to Warrior Battle from Onslaught, but there isn't Sticky in Unending Swarm. Thus, this is where I start to talk about those problems of, well, you are really relying on the disposition you're given to actually make sense with the detachment. And another thing that, as we looked at disruption evolve across the game, I've noticed that a lot of the disruption lists are movement heavy, whether that be deep striking or something like assault. You take sisters, for example, look at that, their assault goes with their disruption. You look at us, subterranean assault, ambush predators, deep striking, There you go, disruption. So, while again looking at something like Unending Swarm, again, battle line units, OC, great. But surge moves, yeah, that's get in there and keep going. Like you want to clog up the board with these tiny bodies. That's what would make them great here. Instead of just sitting there waiting to die, as they are, very easily killable. And then I want to kind of talk about this one step further when it comes down to data sheets, right? Um, Another instance, well, I guess you could say that was data sheets too, but another instance is what I mean of like, look at Crusher Stampede. That's currently our only access to purge the foe. Yet, quite a few of our monsters, for a while, have felt lacking in the purge the foe department. So, coming to something I was talking about in the last one, we've been taking something like Hive Guard to effectively kill vehicles. We take Zoes to effectively kill, try to effectively kill vehicles and things like that. So, as it currently stands, some of our more efficient methods of removing particular models would have to go into Crusher Stampede with zero support. The Zoes, yeah, they can attach to the Neuro Tyrant, but they don't, in any combination, have something that helps specifically the Zoes. The Crusher Stampede rule works on monster models, right? So yeah, you could lose from the unit, but only the Neuro Tyrant is getting the buff, if any. So the way that we've been looking at three-man Zoes lately, putting that in Crusher Stampede would just be, oh, here's 90 points that gets no buffs anyway, anyhow, for our attempt at purging the foe. Or something even more simple. I worry about units that should work in a detachment working even less in that detachment because they're tied to a disposition that might not work for them. So Assimilation Swarm, as we've seen, very, very, very few people have actually taken it as priority assets. There is one person from what I saw in War Masters, accompanied, to WTC, a part of WTC, uh, that is actually taking Assimilation Swarm as priority assets. And if you know me, you know there's a unit that I've been vouching for in Assimilation Swarm for a while. That is the Lowly Ripper, right? Just gotta love the little guys, okay? But now, with this new system, you're seeing them even less, right? I'm like, wait, hold on. There's a lot of Assimilation Swarm being played, but now there's like even less Rippers being played than ever because they aren't necessarily terribly great for priority assets. They're easier to kill, so it gives up some purge to foe points, but I'd argue the same for the Biovore that, hey, is still being taken. Um, but can advance your assimilation swarm game plan, but not too much of the priority assets game plan. And then if you look at assimilation swarm, it has the option of becoming taken hold, or disruption with ambush predators. And to that point, yeah, I'd argue there is a world into which you could take ambush predators assimilation swarm and try to use rippers for some disruption there. I'd argue maybe, but also argue you shouldn't have to do the thing that's less effective for your list, for your detachment, to try to do something different with the disposition. That's where my concern grows. Or, hey, there's no way that the monsters of Crusher Stampede, as it currently stands, can get Recon because Vanguard Onslaught is a 2 DP, right? So while you have deep striking monsters, you can make them disruption, right? You can do a list of snakes with disruption, but don't you think it would be kind of neat to do what Chaos Knights are doing, where they have big models playing Recon? I don't think that you should just be completely skewed away from that. Now, mind you, you'd also say, hey, but a lot of those models that are monsters that can deep strike are Vanguard invaders. And you'd be correct, right? But there's an entirely different rule set for the detachments. Yeah, I can uppy downy, right, with Vanguard Onslaught. So I can get some more out there to the recon. I can even make myself lone op 18, right? With, again, talking to the monsters. For the little ones, you can even get that lower, right? But there should be a realm into which I can take Crusher Stampede's rule set, and it was made as a bit of a band-aid where the monsters just don't hit hard enough, right? That's their problem. They should be able to find a way to hit harder while doing a different disposition because they hit harder than they normally do, but neither one effectively makes them good at Purge the Foe, right? Does that kind of track what I'm saying on that one? Because if you take a unit that isn't great at doing the thing that the detachment is trying to fix it to do, but it's already subpar, that's when you get worse results. So that's where I'm concerned with why we're combining so many levers into this system that don't need to be combined. How will you ever know, as it currently stands, if the disposition is the problem or if the detachment is the problem if you have both without changing a bunch of things at the same time? And then when it's just drastically worse, with the signature GW triple tap becoming a quadruple tap, what do you do, right? For instance, you can see the Defiler was still good no matter where it was, right? And as it currently stands, we're taking a fuck ton of Norns, but is that because the Norns are OP? Or is that because they're our best shot at take and hold? And uh-oh spaghettios, we're doing a lot of take and hold. You don't see too many Norns in any of the other disruptions, except for a couple of the Synaptic Nexus list, right? We don't see a lot of Norns taken with Ambush Predators Vanguard Onslaught, right? That doesn't kind of go that way. And you don't see currently, right, a lot of Vanguard Onslaught Talons of the Norn Queen. So, um, it's just more so that my problem is the system, right? I think that we're fine doing disruption the way that disruption is done. We look at our subterranean assault, it goes, hey, I can play disruption, and people are doing okay playing disruption and subterranean assault. We look at, hey, I would like to play take and hold today. You take Talons of the Norn Queen, and whichever variety of Synaptic Nexus, Assimilation Swarm, Crusher Stampede, hell, maybe Invasion that you want to do, and you do take and hold, right? But again, my concern is more so that we aren't currently looking good at trying to do priority assets with whatever mix and match of things that we currently have available. And we aren't currently looking good at Crusher Stampede, sorry, at Purge the Foe, because the only access to it is Crusher Stampede. And no other mix of that has really proven to do the thing, right? There should be a world where I can utilize the +1 to wound out of Assimilation Swarm and Purge the Foe, right? There should be a world into which I can use the reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 in Synaptic Nexus to effectively purge the foe. And I don't think that the current system, locking that behind detachments, is a nice system where we just have to wait until one of two things happens, right? Until some balanced data slate goes, hey, we should make Warrior Bioform Onslaught priority assets, right? Or we wait until maybe Grotmis or the Codex for them to finally make a 1 DP Purge the Foe or a 1 DP priority assets, even though they already removed Purge the Foe from a lot of factions' access because they're scared about how many people were taking Purge the Foe. which, again, I don't think should have been the way that was handled, right? The problem is, why did Purge feel as fine as it did compared to playing anything else? Because the game plan is simple. The access to it isn't necessarily the issue. It's that the other dispositions require you to do drastically more than kill your opponent. And except for in the case of Taken Hold, which was also populous, where it's just stand there and hopefully don't die, right? Maybe kill somebody that's trying to kill you. Okay. So I don't love that the current system means that, hey, we might be looking at a year or two of no, there's just no way possible that your fucking Zoes are really purging the foe. They're just hey, we already have issues of units not being taken, right? Like that's just every army has units that just aren't worth even deploying on the battlefield. I think the fact that you then add a disposition on top of that makes it even worse. So, if they are worried about some of those things, what do you do on that front? Or some of the units that we don't see necessarily as much anymore. Looking through the list, I was, you'd be kind of surprised that there's less exocrines, but really, what is it going to do for you? It's okay at trying to purge the foe. And 10th edition, where everybody has to stand on an objective, right? But is it still doing the purging? No, people have been better. Rulers have gotten better. Hey, and if you roll 4 shots and with benefit of cover, you're not hitting as well as you thought you were. It gets a little rough. Or another unit like Gargoyles, which I did think was kind of interesting that, hey, Gargoyles are battle line, right? They're battle line. They have pretty good OC. If you want to make that OC have a purpose and Vanguard Onslaught, you have to attach that to Warrior Bioform Onslaught. And then you can take and hold, but I think you should be able to just have that funky game plan available to you without kind of sacking into Warrior Bioform Onslaught, right? Or you have to pick Challenge of the Norn Queen and it gets even weirder. Then you deploy a Norn in Vanguard Onslaught just so you can use your Gargoyles in Vanguard Onslaught, the Vanguard Invaders in Vanguard Onslaught. Now, mind you, again, they can do recon, but you should be able to use all parts of every data sheet at all points in time. It's kind of what I'm going for here, or what I mean per se. All right. So hopefully that does a better job of explaining what I mean by currently the system just locks things out of weird angles that I don't think it needs to, and is at the mercy of completely flipping on its head any balanced data slate. The list that you wrote and fell in love with for Assimilation Swarm, and you've just been having a solid time of it. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs, people are having too much fun with that. Challenge of the Norn Queen becomes disruption. So now you have to find out if your assimilators that your 1 DP detachment was finally making viable are still worth taking in assimilation swarm, and can you then play disruption priority assets? I don't like the whimsy that can be flung around here when not all dispositions are created equal. I don't love that design of it, or as we talked about in the last one, as a punishment system for when something is doing too well. You go, oh, the Norns have to go up in points. Everybody's taking talents of the Norn Queen, so change the disposition and actually make Assimilation Swarm a 3DP because that's where people are taking it with the most. Yeah, I don't think I like that. And you go, GW wouldn't do that, except that's kind of what GW does. That's exactly what GW does. We saw it with Thousand Sons. raise the price, increase the DP, sorry, raise the cost of the unit, increase the DP, and change the disposition that we saw it with Thousand Suns, right? And that was 1 month into the game. I just don't think that those levers should be tangled together when you have ways to see what could truly be the issue, whether it is one unit, one detachment, one disposition. It was already messy enough for GW to try to figure out if it was the detachment or the data sheets or the points of the data sheets, right, causing that. And last, then 10th edition, well, forever, right? But 10th edition coming off the back of that, it was already messy enough for them to do that. And we clearly saw too many things of why would you both nerf the points and change the data sheet? It's just like why did you do both of those things at the same time and nerf the detachment? We didn't need to add the fact of a disposition being attached to any of those, where this is just going to get messier and messier. So that's kind of what I really wanted to talk about here with the faction. I think that the faction is fine at doing taking hold and doing disruption, and we get enough cheeky wins doing reconnaissance, right? But it shouldn't take a codex release or a year or two before Tyranids are able to effectively play priority assets or effectively play Purge the Foe. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.